my grandfather handed each of us, including my grandmother, a $5 bill for the collection. You know, back then, a $5 for me was like $1,000. It was a lot of money for a little kid. And so as we were walking into church, I took the $5 that was supposed to go into the collection basket, and I thought maybe my grandfather's not watching. And I put that $5 into my pocket. And I took out a dollar bill. Kind of cheating God, you know? Well, he saw me. And I'll never forget, he got down on his knees in that parking lot and held me by my shoulders. He said, "Don't hold back on God. Don't hold back on God. You give everything to God." I know I told many stories about my family, and my grandfather Stanley was a very devout man, a very holy man, but also a savvy businessman. He owned 2 department stores, one in my hometown and the other one in Lake Placid. So he was a great success in my hometown. And he was the only one in my hometown that had a Cadillac because of his success. It was a beautiful black Cadillac. It was a very special car. It was his everything. That was his pride and joy. He took such good care of that Cadillac. And it was a sign to him of his success. Even today, still, I think Cadillacs are a sign of success and kind of making it in the world. And I knew this car was special because it had an 8-track player in it. Remember those? I knew this was something. And he loved Andy Williams. You're all too young to remember Andy Williams. But I grew up listening to Moon River. It was also a car that just was very special, and I knew it because anytime I got into that car, my grandfather would put down a blue towel so the grandchildren wouldn't ruin the upholstery in the back. I don't know what that was all about.
I know.
My grandfather, every Sunday, would randomly go, he had 40 grandchildren. My grandparents had 40-some grandchildren, and would go throughout the North Country, would go throughout town, and he would just randomly pick up a couple of his grandkids to take them to church on Sunday morning. And it was always a great treat to ride in this Cadillac, to go to Mass with my grandparents. It was just a wonderful treat. And then, of course, after Mass, we would go to the Lee House Hotel. And the Lee House Hotel had these Adirondack donuts. They were as big as 3rd graders. And these donuts were deep fried that they crunched when you ate them. And then they had this maple cream poured all over the place on the top of this donut. Oh, it was just to die for. It was such a great treat to go to Mass with them. One Sunday, I was chosen to go to Mass with my grandparents, and so we got to church and got to the parking lot, and like usual, my grandfather handed each of us, including my grandmother, a $5 bill for the collection. You know, back then, a $5 for me was like $1,000. It was a lot of money for a little kid. And so as we were walking into church, I took the $5 that was supposed to go into the collection basket, and I thought maybe my grandfather's not watching. And I put that $5 into my pocket. And I took out a dollar bill. Kind of cheating God, you know? Well, he saw me. And I'll never forget, he got down on his knees in that parking lot and held me by my shoulders. And he said, "Don't hold back on God. Don't hold back on God. You give everything to God." So I put the dollar bill back in and took out the 5. Throughout that Mass, I was haunted by those words, "Don't hold back on God." And as the collection was being taken up, and as I saw the collection basket getting closer and closer to our pews, just then, sat right next to my grandfather, just then I looked down and I saw the keys to the Cadillac. And as the basket was coming through, I picked them up and said, "Don't hold back," and I threw them into the collection basket.
Oh, jeez.
You should have seen my grandfather's face. It's not like you can jump in there and get it out. And then as the collection was gathered together in the front of the church and as it was being brought up, we could see the Cadillac keys on the top of the baskets of the offerings. And when it got to Monsignor, his face just lit up with joy. Don't hold back. Today's gospel, this parable, this story on the wedding feast, it is an image, it is an icon of a God who does not hold back on the invitation to enter into the very reign of God, the kingdom of God. A God who does not hold back, but gives us everything and keeps throwing out the invitation, keeps inviting relentlessly, inviting us into a future filled with hope. And I know right now we might be in the midst of the struggle. We're in the midst of unrest and violence, and revenge, and misery in the holiest of lands. We have our own struggles. But God doesn't hold back, keeps inviting us to a hope-filled, a faith-filled, a love-filled future. God does not give up on this reign, does not give up on this kingdom. God never gives up on peace. God will not give up on justice. God will keep relentlessly inviting us into the kingdom.